This is a story about how the past and the present and the future are all connected. The story takes place in an elevator in Washington, D.C. Three women step in before the doors close and the metal box grinds to a stuck stop. One of the women is a teenager, 17, the other 30 years older at 47, and the oldest 30 years older again at 77. Each are at a pivotal moment in their lives when they become trapped together. And they discover something very unexpected about themselves. And they realize that they're going to have to unravel a shared trauma in order to escape and move forward. We're talking about the novel Just Emilia with author Jennifer Oko on this Desideratum.
The crazy thing, so I'm 56. I started writing the book when I was 47. So that makes a lot of sense. We started at 47, and then 30 years felt like a good increment of time. I still wanted to be in high school. I knew that that end of high school is such a critical time in a person's life. And so part of it too was, how does a decision or an event in your life when you're young impact you at very specific moments throughout your life? And these seemed like good pivotal moments. They were sort of each sort of having to make a choice or a decision about which direction they were going to go in their life, and how would this traumatic event that reveals itself fairly early in the novel, but I don't want to give away too much, but that happened in the summer she was 16, how does that impact her at 17, at 47, and 77? So, right. So I started with me. I started with my age because that's what I could identify with. The funny thing was I have a daughter who, when I started writing the book, was little, right? And then when the book came out, she was 17. And so there was a lot of like, is this your daughter? And I'm like, it's just not my daughter because I wrote it when she was a little kid. I'm not a little kid, but and she was much younger. That's when I wrote the bulk of it when she was much younger. And I certainly started writing it when she was much younger.
But don't you think, though, that when you mother a teenage daughter, you're just intrinsically linked to your own version of yourself?
Yeah.
You just find echoes. Clearly, your children are completely different people than you, but you get these glimpses of that, how you made decisions, how you responded to things.
Absolutely. And it absolutely, and a lot of it is reactive, where like you want to do it differently. You're like, oh, that didn't work for me. So let me try to overcorrect.
Let me save you the trouble. Let me just jump in right here and save you all that trouble.
And we all know how that goes. Yeah, and I think it is one of the hardest things about being a mom is trying to disentangle yourself and your experience from that of your daughter, especially when your daughter does feel in many ways similar to you or similar in terms of her experience growing up. And then my mom is, of course, older, and Millie is absolutely not my mother. But I do. I was watching her, I'm watching my mother age, and it's sometimes hard, seeing that and seeing her struggle with aging and still being incredibly vibrant and incredible. My parents are in their 80s and they socialize and go out all the time. They're still working. It's crazy. But they're still aging, and you see that, and you see how they change and how that changes them. And so I think there was a lot of, when I was writing it, it was just those were things that were on my mind. I think, especially as a woman who at the time was perimenopausal, there's a lot of like, where am I going? Where's my body going? What's my future going to be? And so it was really fun isn't quite the right word when I say, like, it wasn't fun to write. It was really fulfilling to write. And in a lot of ways, I think it's actually like helped me age better. Like, if that makes any sense. Like, I can now not be quite as upset when I look in the mirror. I'm like, okay, so you look wiser, let's just own that for a second, and let's remember that, what I'm going to look at when I'm going to look at myself now, 10 years from now, what am I going to see? And I want to look at myself when I watch the video of this podcast 10 years from now, and I want to say, oh, I really liked that person, and that person was solid and,
Yeah.
you know, enjoying that time of her life rather than, being so
Yes.
focused on what's going to happen, but just being able to
Yes.
center it, And so hopefully in 10 years, I'll watch this recording and feel like, yeah, we did good.
Yes. I think that definitely struck me, is that it did make me think about what would I say to the younger version of myself, or what would I maybe like to know from the older version of myself, what that conversation might be like. And I did think, it wasn't what are the winning lottery numbers, or what actually is happening with climate change, although you allude to things in the world that have changed in that 30 years. But it's more about, like, what you were just saying, and that is, oh, be present and be self-assured and smile and relax. And yeah, it's
And yeah,
funny.
try to be grateful for the good that you have because life is really hard, right? And for everybody,
Yeah.
challenging. And right now is an incredibly challenging time, especially here in Washington, D.C. I mean, it's everywhere, but
Yeah.
it's been a funny summer and trying to still be able to focus on the good stuff.
Okay, that is a good place to pause and listen to a scene from Just Emilia. Let's get into the elevator with Emilia, and Millie as they figure out who they are to each other and as they realize the tragedy that brought them together today. This is me reading from Just Emilia, written by Jennifer Oko and published by Regal House Publishing.
Do you think this is a fucking joke? Em goes on, clearly emboldened by her use of profanities. The forbidden fruit of cursing in front of adults still carries a charge. You think that being trapped in here is like some kind of fucking reunion? You can count me out. I'm not interested in bonding with you about what happened that day. This is bullshit. I am not surprised by her response, knowing, as I do, how awful it feels to scratch at this memory. I, too, would rather keep it down, below the surface. I've been doing it for years. But here we are, and clearly we have to face some facts. The first fact is obvious. My mother, the eternally revered Sally Fletcher, is Em's mother, and Millie's too. And it is indisputable that Sally Fletcher died tragically on October 12, 1986, at approximately 11:17 a.m. Those facts are unalterable. What I question is why it happened at all. That is the heart of the conflict that has overshadowed my life and Em's, at least for the past year, and I am guessing Millie's too. Why did our mother have to die? And more fundamentally, was it our fault? Well, we know it was our fault. But what are we supposed to do with that information is another question entirely. Come on, I say. We are going to have to talk about it at some point. Em responds by spitting out a few more delicious curses like, "Fuck that," and "This is bullshit." Millie, how about it? Can we please go there? I ask. And finally, Millie concedes. She knows, we all know, that if we are going to find a way to end this nightmare, we need to start at a moment when our memory is definitively shared. We need to start inside of a different metal box that had also once brought us precariously close to oblivion.
This story does anchor into a traumatic event, a life-defining event, and there is some mystery around that. It's a really compelling read to go through. And I did think that was one of these overarching themes for this story is how trauma stays with us, and how you see that in each chapter playing itself out, that idea of what are we responsible for, what was our fault, how much we take on ourselves after something traumatic has happened, right?
Right. And guilt is a big one, right?
Yeah.
Like, how do you feel responsible, not real feel responsible? If you are somewhat responsible, what is your responsibility? I mean, there's just a lot of stuff to kind of marinate in. It was really fun for me when I finally figured out that arc. And that, originally, and I started writing it, and there's like, I'm gonna have some people stuck in the elevator, and it's like, who should I have stuck in the elevator? And then I was like, it'd be really hard to be stuck with yourself in the elevator. And it sort of, it unfolds from there, and it's like, okay, now what do I do with the story? They can't just be these people sitting in the elevator, and trying to turn it into a kind of a mystery, something that's a little more compelling, that has like a real dramatic arc to it,
Yeah.
was certainly challenging, but like so satisfying when I figured it out. And there was this, and I struggled. I mean, this book, I mean, like I said, I started writing it when I was 47. It's been this pretty long gestation
Process.
period. And I put it aside for many, I mean, it kind of came back into my life at different points, and I'd put it aside. But when I finally had this sort of moment of how it would all kind of come together, and that's why you write, right? Like, you write for these moments of, I don't even know what it is. It's just like, oh my God, my brain just did that. Like, how did my brain
Yeah.
just do that? It's the
Yes.
coolest thing. I love reading stuff that I've written years ago, and but I kind of don't really remember because I wrote it so long ago, and being like, I wrote that? That's pretty cool. That's cool. It's a great feeling. And
Yes.
it's even better feeling when what you're trying to do, and the feeling that I gave myself in writing it, is something that my readers are getting, which is incredible. I mean,
Mm.
it's it's been really amazing, I have to say. I mean, my previous two novels are, I love them, but they're more like, they're sort of rompy mystery, kind of fun, more comedic. I mean, not that this isn't funny, but this is sort of, it's a little deeper and a little more literary. And I've been getting responses, I mean, from people like literally all over the world. And
Mm.
the one, my favorite was actually before the book even came out, someone got like a Bookstagrammer got like an early review copy, and she was in India. And I woke up in the morning with a direct message from her saying like something, it was something like, it's 5 a.m. in I forget, New Delhi, and I just finished Just Emilia, and I feel strong, I feel beautiful, and I'm excited to start the day. And I was like, I wow. I mean, if I gave somebody any of that,
Yeah.
that's such a gift. And so
Right.
it's just really, it's just really, really nice to know
That's
that
cool.
people have gotten something out of it that's been empowering. That,
Hmm.
it's not just like, oh, haha, it's funny. I mean, it is, I hope, in places funny, and it is,
Yes. I think it's always fun when there's something in the past that you're digging at, and then to have all three of these women, these versions of the same women, digging at this thing in the past. It was very satisfying and compelling, and I thought there were nice layers of it, right? Like what her father's role was, and what this idea of what really happened. And I think that I can relate. I think probably anyone can relate to this idea that memory is fallible,
yeah,
that brain, like I think you even talk about brain plasticity at one point, and the age that the teenager version is, and how malleable things still are, and then how we write our own stories in our head, how we talk about past events, and they become sort of our version of reality, but what really is reality? And
yeah,
that's a neat puzzle to play with in your head, to think about. And I think you scratch the surface, and that's a theme here
yeah.
with Emilia.
It's funny, the plasticity question. I actually, last night, I went to an event, a book event for it's a nonfiction book out called The Second 50. A friend of mine is the publicist for it, and she was interviewing the author, and it's basically how to live the second half of your life in a powerful, beautiful way, right? And it was funny because at one point in their talk, they had everyone close their eyes and imagine somebody old, and then imagine some adjectives that would relate to that person. And then she's like, raise your hand if it's positive, raise your hand if it's negative. And then she was like, okay, everyone whose hands were positive, you're going to live 7.5 years longer. And now that's obviously not totally accurate, but the idea being that there are all these studies that showed that people who have this growth mindset or a positive idea about aging and about what they can grow into live
Mm-hmm.
longer. And it just made me, I was like, this is so great that I'm listening to this here. And it to me, it felt a lot like this is sort of a little bit what I'm reflecting on in Just Amelia. Like,
Mm-hmm.
how do you grow into yourself and not just stop? How do you say like, okay, sure, I'm in the middle of my life, but that doesn't have to be, this could be an exciting new chapter. I mean, you and I think your kids are a smidge older. I just became an empty nester like 2 weeks ago, and
Mm-hmm.
it's scary. But
Yeah.
I'm also like, oh, this is
Yeah.
exciting. I mean, I'm trying not, I'm sad, but I'm also excited.
Yes. It's
And
very sad. Like,
I mean,
I do think it's really, I have a sister-in-law that has told me that she's decided to call it the open nest instead of the empty
oh,
nest,
I love that.
and that she just wants them to be continually flying back to the nest
Yeah.
when it's right for them, without guilt, without manipulation, that the nest is open. And I kind
Yeah.
of like that image of an open nest instead of an empty nest. But it's a huge transition,
Yeah.
but it is also what you just said, a huge opportunity. It is like, oh, I have this energy that I have been really focusing
Yeah.
is now can be refocused, can be shifted. And what do I do with that energy? It doesn't just go away,
Right.
you know? And also the adult relationship. And I think that's also funny about this, how we talk to ourselves, that we are always kind of constantly inventing ourselves and constantly inventing our relationships and the positive possibilities of that. So I've loved getting to know my kids as adults. I think it's a
Yeah, I mean,
very
so my son
exciting
is in
chapter.
second year, and so it's a very different feeling, right? Because I feel like, oh, he's launched. I mean, he's doing great, right? And my daughter
Yeah.
seems to be going great too in the first 2 weeks of college, but we're not, I'm like, can we get to parents' weekend?
It's still a chapter of great need and
Yeah.
nurture. Yeah.
And probably more so because I mean, especially, I mean, our kids, there was COVID, but also just the ability to interact constantly. I called my
Yeah.
parents once a week, collect call, like that you had
Yes.
to figure stuff out. And
Yes.
very easy. And I mean, and I try really hard whenever I do get one of those calls to be like, well, what do you think you should do? Or is there somebody there who could help you with that, even though I totally know the answer?
Yes, not having really your job becomes less about having the answers and more about asking the right questions that lead your kids to answers. And it's a different mindset. But you're right about communication being different in our
Yeah.
time frame. It has the ability to be visual. So my daughter will FaceTime while she's folding her laundry or while she's washing her dishes. And it tricks my brain into really believing I've spent time with her, and I miss her less, I think, than if I had just gotten a letter from her, or, you know what I mean? The
Absolutely.
connection is a really different thing when you're physically able to be present.
Yeah.
I'm going to look at my notes. One of the lines that I wrote down that you wrote is about life is a series of decisions and consequences, one after the next, some leading us to better places than others. And this is when you're talking about how in M's case, this younger version, that window for rewiring circuitry is starting to close, but we do have this opportunity to see how each thing builds on the last, and I loved that. I loved that visual of youth and seeing how each thing is kind of leading to another, how everything is connected. And the mantra sort of came out of that. So let's embrace the brand new day is this
Mhm.
phrase that is a way of starting from a positive place. Can you talk about, did that come from somewhere personally? Is that your mantra?
No, I mean, I tend to not be such a positive person. Like I tend, my natural like resting disposition is not like all Pollyanna. So I fight to be that, I fight to
Ah,
remind myself that, and maybe that's what it is a little bit like aspirational, like,
yeah.
you you learn from your mistakes. Failure is important. Starting over is okay. The brand new day thing, honestly, that just came because I was trying to find a catchphrase for the morning show that hadn't been used or like that I couldn't
Oh,
find, and it worked. It was just like every now and then you find little pieces of a puzzle, then you're like, oh, that works. But I've been thinking a lot lately also about, I mean, just about that. About risk, about taking risks, about failing and learning from that and growing from that rather than being, stunted by that. And
hmm,
as a mom, like you see your kids, you see them hurt, you see them fail, and like that's sort of what you hope for. And so I guess that's what I hope that's what I hope for my characters too. They're kind
yeah,
of like children. You want them to grow, and it also would not be at all interesting to read a book where characters don't grow or evolve, right? So
yeah, yeah. Like in resisting the urge to be pessimistic about whatever chapter you're in or whatever is going on this year and how your mobility is different and it hurts. My feet hurt if I try to hike that far. I can't do that. I can't do this anymore and I can't do that anymore. It's a it's that the momentum is then impacted by if we think I can't hike that anymore, you definitely are not going to hike that anymore. And so you also in this book have the connection to Newton's first law, right? You're talking about like a body in motion stays in motion.
yeah.
And that is a neat way to think about aging also as we think about this character in these different chapters of her life.
Yeah, absolutely. It was funny at my launch that there's a friend of mine who's a wise ass, of course, gets up and asks me a question. And the first quickly he was like, let's talk about quantum physics. And I'm like, okay, no. I make some allusions to physics, but I am not going to go on a public stage and talk about quantum physics in any way, shape, or form, other than how I referred to it in the book. It was pretty funny. But yeah, I think that's right. I mean, it's just the same thing. It's like, you make a decision and it changes things. It's the butterfly effect. It's like there's nothing that we can say or do to ourselves, to other people in the world that doesn't have impact in some capacity, that doesn't change things in some capacity. I mean, time
Right.
travel is so fun to play with because you have to think about that, right? And
Yeah.
I like to say it's a time bending novel rather than a time travel novel, but
Hmm.
it's but we're still playing with these ideas. Can what happens? And can M change the 17-year-old? And how will that then change when they get out of the elevator, Emilia, and hence Millie? And like interesting to think about. Or will
Yeah.
it? Or will, I'm not going to go talking about the end too much here, but
Yeah.
lots of different ways we can come out of this elevator. But I think that is true. And it's, when I write about use of the outside world in 2047, I mean, climate change is obviously very much that, we make an
Hmm.
impact, it has an effect. This is how we're going to have to live with the effect and adapt to the effect. And so thinking of what this city might look like in 2047 is, again, not fun is not the right word, but really interesting, really challenging. And I'm curious about it. I'm obviously worried about it. I wrote the book obviously before this summer, but there's this summer with everything that's going on in DC. I feel more attached to the city in a way that I never have
Mm.
before. And I'm so glad that I wrote a book that's centered in the city. And
Mm.
the I'm from New York City, and my whole life I always New York felt like a character in my life. And when it's taken
Mm.
me years for DC to feel like a character in my life and not just a place that I live. And I think writing the book and having to research what it used to be like and having to think about what it will be like, and then having for the city to come together this summer and just really think about who we are as a city, as a population together. It's a obviously very diverse city, has made me feel just so much more connected to it. And
Mm.
that's been kind of cool. And I love doing DC events and I love like I had this great idea. I don't think it's ever going to happen, but I really originally I wanted to do my launch party in the metro, but yeah, that was a little
Yeah.
complicated. It would have been
Yes.
fun. And then I was like, what if we did a flash mob party in the elevator of the metro? And it is a real elevator that I write about. It's
Yeah.
an elevator that I take. It was actually very funny. I was right before the book came out, I was trying to do like little videos for social media. My husband's filming me at the elevators, the doors are opening and I'm standing in front of it and the doors open and this woman I went to graduate school with 30 years ago walked out of the elevator. It was crazy. And I was
What?
like, what are you doing here? And she's like, oh, hi. And it was so funny because she was so nonplussed about it. She was like, I guess she'd been seeing some of my posts. She's like, oh, you're doing great on social media. I hear your book's coming out. I was like, wait, it was so weird. But
Yes.
I don't know, the whole thing, like, so that little section of the city, which has changed tremendously, even in the time that I've been here, it keeps changing, now has a special place in my heart in this kind of funny way. It's,
Yeah.
there's these amazing cultural events, and this is a vibrant, exciting, often warm and welcoming city. It's not
Mm.
without its problems, of course, there are problems. It's a city, but there's also a lot of really good stuff. And the idea that it's what is being painted by the White House is preposterous. Like it is absolutely preposterous.
Mm.
Like it's not recognizable to me. It's not
Mhm.
recognizable to anybody I know. And I know people who live in many different parts of the city. So it's not just that,
Yes.
my little where I live, as you can see, I mean, like this, it looks like the suburbs, right? Like we have
Yes. Right. But
trees,
there are lots of green spaces in DC.
so many trees, and the parks are incredible. Everyone should come to DC.
Yes, it's a very good point. I'm glad you brought up that this story is very rooted, seated, past, current,
Right.
future DC, which is it's a wonderful perspective.
So Just Amelia is about a part of DC that most people don't see, right? It's a residential area. Yeah.
Yes. Well, talking about like the greenery out your door and how it sort of feels suburban, there is a reference multiple times to a kind of tree in
Oh,
this story. Do you want to talk about that?
yeah. Can I just tell you? Okay, so the ginkgo tree. This is the autobiographical part of the novel. There is,
Oh,
in fact, a ginkgo tree at my front door, and every year in the fall, starting now, because I just saw them this morning, the fruit drops, right? It became a female tree, did not start as a female tree, it transitioned to male, and it now fruits. And it has since the whole time we've lived here. I mean, when we moved in, it was still happening, and it is horrible. I mean, that ginkgo smell. It's like this horrible, vomitous, like just awful smell. And it's and the flip of it is the canopy of the ginkgos on my street. It's stunning. In a few weeks they'll all turn yellow. We're gonna have this golden canopy from both sides. People come up to see it, right? That's
yeah,
when we do
yeah.
get tourists up here. And not all of the trees have transitioned to female. So as long as you don't walk in front of my house. But I find the ginkgo tree is fascinating. It's this tree that just like, and this is the thing, it doesn't die. It's like it's this tree that can like live for thousands of years,
Yes.
which is this big joke in my house because of course we hate this tree and we can't take it down because we need to have a certain percentage of our neighbors agree to take it down and nobody wants to ruin the beautiful canopy, which I do understand. But then again, I'm like, well, then can you help sweep it in front of my house? Because we have to sweep it like 5 times a day at the height.
Wow.
And it's so funny you said that though, because I like literally I just took a picture to send to my husband. He's on a work trip and I was like, oh my God, they're falling. And I have this picture of some of the berries on our front walk going, yeah, here
And
they
there
are.
you are. Yes. Yeah, I'm aware of the canopy you're talking about. I believe I've been and seen them, but the I had never read that much detail about the smell, the fruit. You really do. You give us little, like you just even said it verbally, like, oh, it's transitioned. And like, this is a fascinating tree. This tree
Yeah.
does incredible things, has this enormous lifespan, and yet has this just putrid,
Beautiful and hideous at the same
beautiful and
time, right?
hideous. Yes.
Yeah.
I like that you told us so much about the ginkgo berries, and even isn't there something too about how it changes in a traumatic event, how
Creates
it
new,
grows, a basal sort of growth that happens after
right?
trauma.
Like it's an incredible specimen. I just wish it wasn't in front of my house.
Yeah, it was a fun. I actually, it was one of those things. I love when I'm reading a book and it sends me to the internet to find out, is that, wait a
Cool.
minute, that can't be right. Is that true? So, yeah, people that like to get little tidbits of side trivia will enjoy, yeah, will enjoy the ginkgo berry stink in this
Yeah.
book. Yeah, let's see. One of the last notes I made for myself is that this reminded me of the Dickens tale with the ghosts of Christmas past and present and future.
Mhm.
Like there was a certain element of, as the situation is resolving, and as we said, we don't want to give anything away because it's really fun to experience the book as it's unfolding for you. But I did like this idea that they all sort of are coming rushing into this elevator. They have a lot of momentum as they're coming in, and then they're frozen there together, and they're given this opportunity to unravel and unwrap pieces of their lives together. And it did kind of remind me of the ghosts of Christmas past and Christmas future and present, and in a
I mean,
neat sort of storytelling way, right?
yeah, I mean, I'm not the first person to, write a novel about confronting yourself, right?
Mm,
It's something, it's really interesting and I think useful for all of us to do. So it's not a surprise that it's a theme that comes up again and again in literature. I'm happy to be compared to Dickens, so that's good. I'll take it.
there's a reason in storytelling that we come back to some themes, I think, as authors and as readers, that we're attracted to. You bring a lot of compassion to it, though. Like clearly, the Dickens version is sort of wicked
Yeah.
in its telling, and there's compassion here and wit and humor. I really enjoyed it.
You. I'm so glad. I'm really glad. It's been a journey as a like with this book now for quite some time, and it's been incredibly gratifying to finally have it out in the world and have it actually be received so well by
Mm,
and to hear like it's really humbling, but it's
yeah.
also just it's wonderful. It's I guess in the end it's why you write, it's why you
Mm,
create art, it's why you do a podcast, right? Like you want to share things and ideas and
yeah.
that they resonate in the world is it's incredible.
Yeah. Well, is there anything that I didn't ask that you really like to talk about or mention around just Amelia?
I mean, one of the interesting things actually is that it's about the publishing industry, right? So
Mm,
just really it's an small independent press. It's not a big five. And one of the things, which is a whole crazy, annoying, long story as to how I got here, but
mm,
it's been a really wonderful experience since I've been here, let's just say. And
mm.
one of the really lovely things about it is that there's a cohort for each season with Regal House, which is the publisher. And my cohort, the summer 2025 cohort, we've sort of come together and we have Zoom calls and we support each other. And what I've
Oh,
found is that these books are beautiful. Like they deserve an audience. The books that I've read of some of my cohort authors are really, really fabulous books. And
yeah.
it's really fun to go through this experience with other people. And so like, we can have these Zoom calls and sort of cheer each other on and support each other. And next week I'm doing an event with another author from my cohort at a local DC bookstore.
Oh, good,
So that
good.
should be really fun. But I just
Yeah.
want to encourage people to like break out a little. It's hard because the big difference is distribution. So I'm
Mhm.
not in every bookstore. I'm in some bookstores. I'm not in every library. I'm in some libraries. It takes a lot more work to move this mountain. And
Mhm.
I just encourage people to check out independent presses because there's a lot of really beautiful stuff that's coming out of them that you wouldn't
Mhm.
otherwise see.
I agree completely. I agree completely. It's kind of like the difference to me. It reminds me of radio. Like I always told my kids, like I listened to what the radio told me to listen to.
Mhm.
My musical tastes were not as diverse as my children's are because my children have self-discovery for
Yeah.
music and they find artists that I've never heard of before that aren't in the top 40. And so I think of that in publishing as well, is that we really you have to look a little. You have
Yeah.
to, if you liked this, you might also like this. Like finding a small press and then going, oh, well, what else have they done? This was
Yeah.
beautiful. And looking. And it's not that hard, actually, but it's not going to be laid out for you in a large chain bookstore or on a large chain's distribution platform necessarily. It might not
It's
come
like a
up.
supermarket, right? It's because it's like they don't have that product space. They don't have that co-op
Yes.
space that like you
Yes.
and I remember when Gloss came out 20 years ago, walking into a Barnes and Noble, and there was this huge stack of them. It was incredible. But that's not what's happening here. Like,
No.
occasionally I'll see it in a bookstore. Our friends will take me, she'd send me a photo of like
Out in the wild. Yeah.
wild. Yeah, and it's so great. You're like, oh my gosh, it's actually there at a
Right.
bookstore I don't even know. That's the incredible one. Like, it's one thing I'm grateful for the DC bookstores that have helped here, but
Mhm.
it's really cool when I see it promoted or like, in the window
Yes.
or on a
Well, how did it find its way to the woman in India, right?
right.
This is a shared experience. This is one person reading and saying, "Oh, I think you'd like this," and recommending. That is really it's great advice to look around, seek it
Yeah.
out, and see what you can find. Well, the last question I always ask is connected to the name of the podcast. Desideratum is Latin. It means the desire for things that are essential or things that you desire as essential. And for me, that's the thing about getting to talk to storytellers about their work after I've read something and I go, oh, this was compelling and interesting and thoughtful. And I want to I want to know more about why they wrote what they wrote and how it came to them. And that feels essential to me. So I always like to ask, and you can answer it as the storyteller with this book in mind, or as a mom with a recently emptied nest.
Or,
For you, what do you desire as essential? What do you think is most essential?
wow. It's funny that again, like your timing of these questions is really interesting because the DC Commission on Arts and the Humanities just asked I'm a recipient of a fellowship, which I'm very grateful for, and they
Mm,
asked their people who've received fellowships from them to post on social media. I think the real question was like, why does your art focus on DC? But I didn't answer it like that. My answer was actually about how I think art and literature are just that's what separates us, right? And it's essential for us as humans. We need storytelling, we need art. It gives us strength. And it's like it feels almost political to me now, and I wasn't thinking about this before this summer, but now I am. And I was like, and also as a documentary filmmaker, I have so many colleagues whose grants just got, swept away. Who are we without art? And who are we without storytelling? We're really kind of empty. And
mhm.
so obviously there's a lot of stuff we all need in the world. We need love, we need community, we need oxygen, we need clean air, we need all of this. But we need stories. That's how we communicate. That's how we connect. We need art.
I hope you enjoyed getting to know Jennifer Oko as much as I did. You can connect with her through her website at jenniferoko.com. That's jenniferoko.com. You can find her previous novel, Gloss, that she mentioned. It's a satire of morning television. And her memoir, Lying Together. It was a New York Times Book Review Editor's Choice. And of course, I hope you get your own copy of Just Emilia from her publisher, regalhousepublishing.com. As always, thanks for being here. Thanks for listening.